I'll read a few poems from both of my books tonight, and I'll begin with Reticent Bodies, the first book that Deanna mentioned. I'll begin with a poem called Real Politic, which I think is kind of pertinent given what's happening right now. This is a poem called Real Politic, and I wrote this in about 2003 in March in the drumbeat to the invasion of Iraq. And there's a number in the second line of the poem, 500,000 Iraqis, and that number is the number of Iraqis that were killed during the sanctions that were imposed on that country. So this is Real Politic. Since the death of 500,000 Iraqis goes unmourned, so I will not mourn them, but will continue drinking to excess. And though it has been written that under the eternal threat of war, children gain anxiety disorders and are found banging their head against floor and other available cement, I will not mourn them. I will not mourn the dying and deformed because an idealist cannot be happy, and I want to be happy. So I will laugh and marry and continue drinking to excess. I'll read a second poem from Reticent Bodies. This one's it's from the second section of the book, which is called Fictions, and it's kind of built around the blues and that 4-bar blues and that repetition and the cycling and all of that stuff that happens in the blues. And it's called Alley Doll. Alley Doll moves slowly, room to room, when she is without me. Her face taut as clothesline, burdened shoulders, body boiled so thin, body so long. That summer her husband and she discovered Etta James. Raised the volume so it moved room to room with her. Over and over again, Etta James, room to room. A sort of portrait. Alley Doll standing, crossing the room away from me, leans her hand out window, string of smoke rising, curling above street. Alley Doll moving slow through room. Leaves cigarette to breathe against window screen, hair still and yellow-brown past shoulders, using hands to describe Spanish mountains. Then twists her arm, shows that spot where foot slipped on wet rock, damaging her elbow. Hands describing, Alley Doll has an umbrella smile, groves of Spanish olives. July night, trying to sleep. Torment of storm, rain like flung stones against window, against wall, window pane rattling mad between frame. Across the room in my underclothes, tear strips of newspaper to wedge between glass and frame. Sleep, torment, silent pain. I used to say it. Even wrote it out. Then over and over again, like a needle tracing same section of groove till ink crowded paper, 'cause my veins got poison marching in it. Used to whisper, oh, Alley Doll, I'd never touch you. But yellow summer dress and me leaping out windows. Etta James and 12-bar blues in a room made orange by sunset. Beats stretch like a body across mattress. Beats long as leg, ankle to hip. Melody like a thin white sheet. All this parched skin and the appetite for water. Come, Alidal, time we swim. Evenings meeting her, leaning against chain link fence, walking those streets amongst noise of bicycle chains, stop and start of cars, couples strolling, talking, amongst metal breaking of cars, then that 7-step drop into nightclub. Nightclub like a smoke-filled mouth. Standing at bar, my pressed pants, pressed shirt, dance floor between us and band, man with large arms squeezing, swinging his cornet. Alidal leaning back against me, my hand alive at her hip. Song with bare shoulders, long legs, ah, Jesus. Wet guitar, the rough horn wanting to break free, loose. And Eve's voice feeling it, waiting at that half moment, gathering, waiting. Jesus, I'm there. Then stepping and her voice leaping over band spotlights, grabbing some lyric and swinging it up top, twisting and tying it up on itself, up top at the street, above buildings, wires, traffic, before getting back. Then that second leap from stage across dance floor, band chasing her like 5 wild dogs, and my hands alive, those 7 steps below street. Adding my weight slowly to mattress. Summer grip of heat clinging to stark white walls. August heat sleeping in long white bones. Speak slower, Alidal. Speak slow. In that voice, more breath than whisper. Used to say it over and over again, like a needle tracing same section of groove. Used to say, oh, Alidal, I'd never touch you. Alidal moved slowly, room to room, when she was without me. I'll read some poems from Floating Life now. And after I finished school, I did quite a bit of traveling. I just wanted to get out and see some things. And to save up some money for the traveling, I did some teaching in South Korea. And so while I was there were 4 of us who were really good friends. We were all teaching in different towns in South Korea, and we'd agree to we'd pick a town to meet up at on the weekend. So we'd all kind of meet there and have a fun weekend together and also explore the new town. And so after we pick a town, I'd research a little bit, see what was happening in that town and what the history was and what kind of monuments were there. And so one of the places we visited was this temple, and it was a Buddhist temple, and so it was, in front of it there were 2 kind of pagodas. One was heavily embellished, lots of carvings on it, and the other one was next to it was very austere, almost just like a staircase, very pure lines. And so the theology of that temple was sort of like coexistence, and 2 people who think very differently should be able to sit side by side and pray in like perfect compatibility. So I got really interested in that and started reading a little bit more. And the other thing I found that was interesting was the theory of reincarnation that this temple believed in, and their belief was that reincarnation isn't random or arbitrary. It's that you reincarnate in clusters. So your father in this life will be your brother in the next life, and things like that. And the purpose of this is so that you're constantly interchanging, so that you have a chance to perfect your sympathy and perfect your compassion for the people once you've started trading off the roles. So I'll read a poem from Floating Life that I wrote on the way back from that trip, and it's called Near the Pagoda. And it's kind of it's only abstractly related to the experience. It's kind of a biography. Near the pagoda. Near the pagoda, I made joke after joke, too shy to take your hand. And with songs and books, I thought of you. I thought of you. And in my beige uniform, my walking, my way in talking, everything of me was different. And the further songs, the further books, I tied my scarf to the library's gate. I wake these weeks into the smolder of dreams and touch my face and think how from your room to mine you will have laid flowers that I pass too quickly over to give either foot a petal's pleasure. And inhaling the air around your dark hair, I will stand with all my selves and call you mother, sister, wife, daughter. One of the favorite places I visited was Cairo, and first time I went, I was really entranced by the city, and so I went back a couple more times after that. And so there's a poem in Floating Life that's in 12 parts, and it's called Cairo. And each part is sort of a different facet of the city, but it's definitely not reportage. It's kind of it's subjective and imaginative, and sort of takes into account that the impressions I was having were my own. They were subjective. And so there's a quote I found from Borges, and he says, "The picture of the city that we carry on our mind is always slightly out of date." I thought that got nicely to the subjectivity of kind of experiencing a really amazing city. So this is Cairo. I'll read some fragments from it. 2. Cairo bridges are built too low, or the sails are too high. The boats catch, and sliding through the original water, collect on the northern side. We climb the growing dam and socialize. Our captain points at the bridge. He is not irate, then at our boat. Everyone speaking Arabic. Aphorisms, no doubt. Then turning and shrugging, he says, Inshallah. 3. In the region south of the papyrus, the fish are so large that the fishermen loiter and buy produce. In the late evening, the circus performers descend to the riverbanks and haul the heavy nets from the water. Through the Cairo nights, while the unemployed Muslims pebble the streets, the circus performers perambulate, ashamed of their zakat. 4. A Cairene is a grisly thing, unconcerned with the platonic self. They think nothing of 2, 3, 4 wives and employ spatial boundaries, whereas our wives are strangers by time. Still, they seem happy. 5. Architecture here is neither infant nor aristocrat. If a man erects an antenna, another man further down the road will raise his arms into the air and persuade passing friends over until there are 4 of them, shoulder to shoulder. They wait until they are convinced that the wire is no temporary thing. I saw a very large man enter an indoor cafe, and what the proprietors did was drag a sleeping man in from a room I had not noticed, and the room harmonized, and I read easily. But the strangest thing was a woman. Her posture is irrelevant. She came into that same cafe, found a man she knew quite deeply, and with my poor language, I went home fuming. It was the strangest thing. They were speaking in a kind of palindrome. 6. Lacking vegetation, Cairo buildings inhale the table water and the solutes too. Barati and sumac and saffron and indigo. Their facades are streaked wildly blue, red. Entire houses are yellow. But of the residents, a small core in each of them remains pagan. They await the colliding sand winds of Ethiopia, Libya, Sudan, and Sinai, and their homes stand pious among the mosques. This is 7. Matthew's not the only one who can write a dirty poem. 7. Of the European money who seasonably live here, they speak slightingly of Durrell, who I believe tried hard and have their own competitions. At my first dinner party, I joined in the compliments, and knowing Paul was still hungry, Elise rose from the table and returned to us nude, struggling to walk with a croissant high up between her legs. Unused to this, I found olives for my eyes. Eight. In translating Arabic literature, what is lost are the gesticulations. This Romanization cannot house it. One must remember that he who is narrating is swinging his arms and raising them again in such a fever and bringing them down onto the table with complete disregard, for example, for my glass of tea. Thanks very much, everyone. I'll read the last poem in the book. And thank you for the invitation. This is called After Arriving Home and Reading Your Letter from Port Said. And I've been traveling for a while, and I kind of was so happy to be back home. And I thought I had all that restlessness out of my blood. And then I got a letter that kind of filled me in on some things that were happening from people I met who were traveling. And that restlessness doesn't go away so easy. After arriving home and reading your letter from Port Said, if I had written to you earlier and heard how everything had changed, and how, instead of Djibouti in June, you set sail from Alex in July, I would have joined you and been the third on your crew, and come with you on your French friend's catamaran to Jeddah, Eritrea, Aden, Seychelles. Even if, as you write, the visas will be difficult. It will be weeks, you say, before you can write again. Just last week, I was in Cairo. Thanks very much, everyone.